Hello, my name is Joseph Carlson, and this is episode 174 of Gaming with Grief. And I'm calling this episode the Artful Escape Spoilercast, but I want to remind you that this podcast will hit my website, www.gamingwithgrief.com, Monday morning at 7 a.m. Please go there and leave a comment and let me know what you think of the show. You can also write to me at gwgpodfellows@gmail.com. Let me know what you think of the show. Maybe give me a suggestion. Let me know how I can improve. Or just, if you want to ask a question or something like that, you can do it there. You can also subscribe to the podcast in either Apple iTunes, the Google Play Store, Spotify, and the audio of the podcast goes up on YouTube, day and date with when it hits the website at 7 a.m. on Monday. You can also find me on Twitter at JustLittleJoe. And as I say every time, and I'm trying to get better at, I will try to get better about promoting the show. But yeah, so I finished Artful Escape. I sat on it for a few days. I was out of town, so now I'm actually sitting down to record my spoiler cast. So full spoilers. I'm going to totally spoil the game. If you don't want the Artful Escape spoiled, you have been warned twice, as I counted so far. So please, wait till you play the game to listen to this. So I did already say this in my early impressions video, but I'm just going to go over this again, just for general information. Artful Escape is about a 4-hour game. It was published by Annapurna Interactive. It came out, I don't have that written down. It came out, I think, 2 years ago. It was developed by, I want to say Beethoven and, I think it's Beethoven and Dinosaur. Anyway, all that, you can go back to my early impressions video and listen to that. You play as Francis Vendetti. Your father is Johnson Vendetti, who's basically Bob Dylan. And this is your kind of coming-age tale in game form. I did mention in the early impressions video that there is a line of dialogue where it is your father and uncle, Johnson Vendetti, together in a photo. You say to yourself, they were with each other a lot. And even in the end, they were together. So it is implied that your father and uncle died in some kind of accident. And you also say in that same scene, no one asks about my dad anymore. I did say in my early impressions that I would hope that they would go back to this. I played the game on Xbox Cloud towards the end. There were some audio glitches, but I got the game. I completed it. I was able to complete the QuickTime events. The Xbox Cloud app is amazing. But they didn't really resurface this idea of going back and talking about his dad. I think maybe he did that a little bit in actions. To talk about this game, I'm not going to go over every story beat, word for word what happens. But the general stroke is, I talked about in my early impressions, you like sci-fi a lot. Your uncle was a folk singer. You find this incredibly ungratifying. You look like your uncle. People want you to be your uncle. They want you to play songs that your uncle played. There's a really well-known album that he came out with called Pines that sold millions of copies. There's an anniversary to Pines. So everybody has come to the town of Calypso, Colorado, that your uncle was a citizen of, a townsfolk. They're having a festival. They're having an anniversary. You're going to play your uncle's songs. Again, you don't want to play your uncle's songs. Nobody's asking about your father. You want to play these sci-fi, David Bowie-esque space opera, kind of songs, Jefferson Starship and like all these just weird, I don't know why I pulled that, but just all these kind of like far out there, kind of incredibly like, Grand Funk Railroad, wear a costume, sing about Von Dilladan, which is where I decided Francis was from. You get picked up by somebody called Lightman, who is played by Carl Weathers, who does an amazing job. He's like your mentor. You go on the starship called the Cosmic Lung, which is amazing. You meet all these aliens. They want you to rock. And you basically move from left to right in this game. And you can hold down X to jam the whole time that you are running, which is great. You can jump. If you hit the X button while you're jumping, you do like a guitar strum flare. And the music is kind of a love letter to just rock in a way. And I guess one of the criticisms of the game could be like, if this isn't your music, if you're not a rock person, if you don't like guitar, And later they had drums and bass. If that's not your thing, you may not like this game, and it may not touch you emotionally. For me, it worked. I've always liked rock music. I thought it was great. Actually, I think the music was done by Johnny Galvatron, who's one of the developers. And to be honest, I didn't look it up, but I don't want to ruin the myth. Johnny Galvatron is his amazing stage name. If that is Johnny Galvatron's real name, so be it. I don't want the myth to be ruined. I saw his name, Johnny Galvatron, was immediately blown away with just what a great stage presence that is, and the fact that this has been created some kind of like a mythical tale for, Francis to be part of. And, you basically there's basically a great rule of three, which if you know screenwriting or anything like that, you try, or jokes, you try to do things in threes, and he has 3 venues he has to play, and he has to impress more and more people. And how you complete these is basically a rhythm game challenge. They show you the cosmic notes, which is basically bolt bumpers on the Xbox controllers, the Y, the B, and the X button. And they'll light up. They use the colors on the controller, blue, yellow, and then they use like green and something for the bumpers, like purple. Basically, you hit these buttons in a sequence. Whatever the aliens or whatever you're fighting, because you're always going to these weird planets fighting aliens in these 3 venues, they will come out of the sky, and you'll see, instead of their eyes, they'll have these 5 notes, the cosmic notes, and then you have to play them in order. It's an answer and call gameplay. They hit both bumpers and Y. You have to hit both bumpers and Y, and it plays a note. And it's kind of cool how it's spaced out, because you basically are writing songs, and some of them are chords. There's a really interesting part where you float through this alien city on the back of something, and when you set it up, you have to impress a cosmic deity. I mean, what space opera is complete without totally impressing a cosmic deity? You go to this creature, and this creature is incredibly flashy and has lights, and you need to do a PR stunt. You decide with your mentor and the alien Vaughn, you decide to do this PR stunt to get the attention of this cosmic being, the glam rock, basically. And anyway, you ride on it, and you get to hold X and hit buttons of the cosmic chord. You're writing a song. You're basically jamming on the back of this thing while lights are going off. Now, the only thing I say about this is not a negative for the game, but I played it on a phone, so it kind of took away from the majesty of the thing. But it was still a good game. The cosmic being played by Lena Headey kind of judges you towards the end of the game and says, you've come a long way. You've jammed on these 3 venues, and you're doing great. But there's a little bit of a dissonant chord in there. I hear a little bit of folk music. It's basically the dark night of the soul. You get thrust back to Earth in despair. And you come back and say, no, that's the only part that I think was a little quick. There's no thrilling, whatever. It just happens quickly, where you're just like, boom, all of a sudden you're back in it, telling her no, and you rock. And you do rock. The music is very good. But that was a little quick for me, that turn of like, hey, you're still kind of holding on to this old vestige of what other people want you to be. And you basically just say, no, I'm not. And then the game continues. But I liked it. And I did like the very end. You get dropped off on a space car, basically, by Violetta, who's the assistant that does the laser shows in space, which is pretty cool. She drops you off. And you kind of had a flashback at your Dark Night of the Soul, where everybody's waiting for the festival in Calypso, Colorado, and they're looking very sad that you haven't showed up to sing your uncle's songs. Violetta drops you off, and you go, oh, man, I missed the show. And she said, you missed the show, but you didn't miss the after show. And you prepare to play everybody at the after show. You're in the hills of Colorado. It's like a small little event. You get lights, and you play them like a cosmic opera, basically a rock opera. And I thought it was a good ending. Again, I think it fell a little short, and maybe that's just because I wanted them to talk more about his father, or at least mention him before they mention your uncle, your mentor, Lightman. Basically lets loose in the middle of the game that, yeah, I played with your uncle before, but like that isn't about this. I want to see what you can do and all this stuff. And so Not bad. And I understand why Francis is sad. I do understand the idea of living in your shadow. I talked about this on the early impressions episode. I think to a degree, all of us live in the shadow of people we've cared about or loved, and it is hard sometimes to kind of eke out your own living or eke out your own existence. And this game really addresses that, and I think there is kind of a grief tied to that of trying to find your own person and really growing up and realizing, you're not a kid anymore. I do like the bit of grief in there that there is this underlying tension between maybe his father and uncle, that, they were together. What does his dad do? What was his dad like? And the fact that, nobody would ask about your relative that passed away is totally crushing. And so maybe it wasn't as effective, and maybe that wasn't the point of the game. The point was to show this fantastical journey of someone kind of going into their own way. But I would say, counterpoint, I think that Francis was kind of somewhere in between at the end. I would like to see him, like, the equivalency for me is Radiohead. They have a lot of crazy, strange ideas, but at the end of it, they're still, for the most part, they have two guitarists, a bassist, and a drummer. And that's still the basis for their music. And they have done early works that are a little bit more acoustical with things like that. Not all their songs, just a few on their first Pablo Honey album. But I kind of saw Francis at the end of not just totally embracing this sci-fi idea, because I think some of that for him was, you'll pardon the pun, but he really was reaching for the stars of, like, this is the most extreme way it could be. And I love sci-fi and everything. But even that towards the end, when she said, I hear a little bit of, the cosmic being again. I don't know if she really has a name. Played by Lena Headey. But she says, I hear a little bit of a dissonant note in there. To me, that wasn't him not embracing the cosmic side. I think that was, in a way, her saying, you're not quite there yet. And a lot of people do say that. Like, hey, you're young. All these things you're feeling, they'll change when you get older. So maybe he does kind of refine his music and change it here and there. And I hope so. I hope there is somehow a sequel to this game. I don't know if it's in the budget of the smaller studio that did it, or if they're thinking about it. But, like, his next journey, Francis Vendetti's next journey to be, I don't know, some kind of, like, maybe this is like an homage to his uncle a little bit and him trying to find his way. And maybe his second or third album, if we get there, in a sequel, if there is one. I'm doing a lot of, like, just juxtaposition here and a lot of, like, wishful thinking, because I do like this game and hope it succeeds and hope the studio does bigger and better things. I like the rhythm elements. Again, I don't really review gameplay, but it was kind of simplistic, but that isn't bad. But I think, maybe his third album, maybe he does become this weird avant-garde, like, Flaming Lips type, not even Bob Dylan goes electric. Like, that's just too pedestrian for him. Really something weird and out there, collaboration with like a industrial artist or some kind of drum and bass artist, something really kind of out there, and kind of weave in different types of music. I think would be really amazing. And this does capture that, like, who am I type thing. And I think for that part, it is good. So maybe I missed the mark a little bit for reviewing this, that it doesn't have as much of grief as I maybe want it overtly. But I think maybe there's this under layer of him really wanting to maybe talk about his father and maybe later write a song about, his mom and his father and, like, maybe what they went through. Because his mom seems, you only see her in a scene or two. She seems very quiet. Some of that could be because of the death of her husband. We don't know the amount of time that has passed between when his uncle and father died and when he's doing the show and things in the anniversary. I don't think, unless I missed something in a conversation or something. But I would definitely like to see how he evolves as an artist, bringing all that forward into a different era, a new era. So I really enjoyed the game. Again, it may have not been as much grief as I wanted it to be, but sometimes that's okay. I think it was just enough or a hint. Maybe this is another way that, I'm changing a little bit too, where it is, excuse me, it isn't so overtly about grief, but, like, there's just like a little underpinning, like, it's just kind of right below the surface. And two, I believe that Francis probably, no matter what he thought about what people wanted him to be, and people wanted him to be more like his uncle, I think maybe he would, he has feelings about his uncle passing away. He did care about him, even though he hates the shadow that his uncle is under. That doesn't mean that he wanted his uncle to die. And I think I would like stuff like that maybe explored, hopefully, in the sequel. But other than that, I really enjoyed the game. The gameplay elements were just enough. The puzzles were just enough to not push back. I definitely recommend it. It is no longer on Game Pass, but I checked before I went out of town. I didn't know if I was going to be able to beat it unless there's a sale on Xbox right now. It's $19.99. So, it's an affordable price. It's about 4.5 hours, depending on, like you might have problems with the delay inputs. I did a little bit on cloud where I had to do a few puzzles here and there over again, so that wasn't the best. But I definitely recommend it. Check it out. It's one of the very few games that I'm telling you and describing you what the game is about. But there's very few games like this where it's hey, it's just about self-discovery and music. I can't think of a lot of games that are like that. Usually games involve combat. They involve some kind of tension that's external. Some kind of grand scheme of somebody trying to get something and destroy something. There's a MacGuffin. This is really just about somebody trying to come into their own with the power of rock and roll, which again, saying that sentence is just strange. So definitely recommend the game. Check it out. It's great. Support developers. And I know it's a little bit shorter for the Spoilercast, but I've kind of said what I need to say, and I really like the game. So I think with that, I will remind you guys this podcast will hit my website Monday morning at 7 a.m. Please go there and let me know what you think of the show. Or you can write to me at gwgpodfellows@gmail.com. Again, go there, leave a comment, let me know what you think of the show, what I can do to improve. You can either subscribe to the podcast in either Apple iTunes, the Google Play Store, Spotify, and the audio of the podcast goes up Monday morning, day and date, when it hits the website. So if you want to enjoy the podcast as audio form on YouTube, please go there. There's no video yet. I'm working something out to have video very soon, so you actually get to see my face. And I might change the format of the show. That doesn't mean the show's going away. I might just try to talk more about grief news or something. I don't know. I have an internal deadline, and I'm working on some stuff right now. But as always, I'll say I will try to get better about promoting the show. I'm not always good about that, and I actually just talked about that with a friend of mine. We have a podcast together, Avin. We talk about the grief of politics, and we talked about promotion and promoting our shows and trying to be better about it and stuff like that. So with that, I think I'll leave you guys. Everybody have a good week, and I will talk to you again next week. Goodbye, everybody.